SoundCartel.
From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. How emotionally intelligent are you and your workplace? Are you being held back, perhaps, by toxic or unproductive relationships? Emotional intelligence specialist Amy Jacobson says hers is a skill that anyone can learn and that it can transform businesses. Amy outlines her 5 steps to build an emotionally intelligent workplace to Jeff Waters.
An emotionally intelligent workplace is filled with people who have the ability to be able to tap into their emotional intelligence. So that emotional intelligence is a skill. And when you have workplaces that have people that know how to manage their emotions, how to understand the impact that they have on the people around them, how to communicate with emotional intelligence, that's when you're going to get an emotionally intelligent workplace. And you can tell by the relationships, you can tell by the culture, you can tell by the performance. Everything about it screams success.
That all sounds really fantastic, but what's emotional intelligence, Amy?
It's a good place to start, right? So emotional intelligence, it's the ability to be able to understand what makes you tick and to be able to manage your emotions.
So we're talking about your own emotional intelligence, knowing yourself and not other people. I just wanted to make that clear for the audience.
The first step is to understand ourselves. However, emotional intelligence is absolutely about understanding other people's emotions as well. So it's kind of,
it's both.
It's got that 2-part in there. Yeah, you've got to understand yourself and how you're wired and how you manage emotions before you can understand what makes other people tick. Now, you can't actually manage their emotions as such, but you've got to understand the way that they're wired, the impact that you're having on them, why, they have different values and beliefs that are driving those emotions to react in a different way than we would.
All right, Amy, so now we've established what emotional intelligence is and what it looks like in a workplace setting to make everything just fantastic insofar as your human resources is concerned. You've got 5 steps to getting there. Let's go through them one at a time. So what's the first step I should take?
The first step is own it. And what I mean by own it is there's a bit of twofold in there, in that each individual in the workplace has to own the role that they are playing in that culture, in that relationship, in that conversation. They've got to be self-aware to be able to own how they are responding in situations, how well they are managing their own emotions, but they also have to own the reality of the situation. So they've got to own that current state. So if we're even looking from a leader point of view, or anyone in a workplace, you have to accept the fact that your current state is where you are at, that it doesn't matter how you got there. It doesn't matter whose fault it was. It doesn't matter, what led you to get to where you are. Your current state is where you have to start. So if your culture is not great at the moment, if there hasn't been a lot of emotional intelligence, this is a point where you own that fact, you own your role, you own what you contributed to that, and you own the reality of this is where we start.
Great. So you accept the situation. All right, that's it. Be stoic about it and say, we need to change this. That's fantastic. Identify the problem, of course, in the first instance. So what comes next?
The next step, number 2, is face it. And face it is when all of the emotions come into play. So these are the individual emotions that are showing for us. So sometimes when we actually have to get to that accountability and that ownership, we'll start to feel the emotions that come with it. And that might be guilt, it might be shame, it might be anger in what has happened to get us there. It might be that we're upset. It might be that we're actually calm and ready and happy to move forward. But whatever those emotions are, we have to face those emotions. And we call it face it because a lot of the time what we like to do instead is ignore them or push them aside or act as if they're not happening. So this face it is facing where have they come from, what values and beliefs are actually driving those emotions, because there is a reason why we feel every emotion. So in order to be able to move forward, we have to face those emotions.
Wow. And this is both in ourselves and the others.
Absolutely. This second step, you've got to face your own as well, your own first. And then when we head into that next step, we start to look at other people's emotions. But it really is, it's breaking through that conscious mind into that subconscious mind to get that emotional brain in play.
And I could see how anxiety and anger would be, really common. Okay, so step number 3.
Step number 3 is feel it. Now, feel it is when we get out of our own head, and feel it is when we start to understand how the people around us are feeling. So this is when we know, okay, it's no longer about us. We're okay. We've owned it. We've faced our emotions. Now, how are other people feeling? And what is the impact on them? What has the impact been on them? What is the impact that I have on them? So this is where your empathy starts to come in. This is where your empowerment, this is where you start to understand that everyone is wired very differently. So what their needs are going to be is going to be very different to what our needs are. And, especially when you're in that workplace environment, to understand what one person's definition of support is might be very different to what somebody else's definition of support is, or, of relationships and internal relationships and the way that we work.
Oh my God, Amy, many of the listeners like me are thinking, if only I knew this at the beginning of my adulthood, that would have been great. Anyway, all those years ago for me.
It's hard, isn't it, Jeff? Because I think the natural thing with a human being is that we do things the way that we do them because we believe it's right. So it's wired into us that, we are naturally in that what do we stand to gain versus what do we stand to lose situation for our mind. What's in it for us? And the way that we do things, the way that we communicate, the way that we make choices, we believe that is right. That's why we do it that way. So when we come across people who do it differently, it's kind of a disruption to our mind because we're thinking, well, hang on a minute. If they don't do it the same way as me, does that make them wrong or does it make me wrong? And the last thing we want to be is wrong, right? So then we turn it into them and we turn it into a them problem where we're like, okay, there's something wrong with them. It's not me. It's obviously them. So this feel it is about really realizing it's actually not about us at all. And everyone is wired differently, and that's okay. What you've got to do is understand what works for them, understand their wiring, and be able to empathize as well.
I'd like to continue down this track, but we're up to step 4 and we've only got so much time. Please tell us what comes next.
Step 4 is ask it. Ask it is when you ask the right questions and you answer the questions that are being asked of you. So this is the communication piece. This is when we understand that communication is not about us. It's about the person receiving the message. And if they don't understand that communication, that's on us because we haven't communicated it in a way that they could understand it. So this is this two-way area of actually really great listening, but also asking the right questions to actually encourage their emotional intelligence and their subconscious mind, and then also being able to answer the questions that are actually being asked of us.
All right. And number 5?
Number 5 is where the rubber hits the road and all comes together, and this is drive it. So this is when you've got it right in your head, like we've owned it, we've faced it, we've felt it and asked it with the people around us. And this is when we come together and we are decisive. We make decisions, we are motivated, we make it happen. And this is when we work smarter rather than harder. So really aligning ourselves with the emotional brain and the way that our brain is wired so that we can actually achieve things and not just have fantastic ideas, but bring it to life as well.
So just briefly, you're saying that if we apply these 5 steps and we listen back to this episode, because clearly taking it all in is important, that we can turn around a negative workplace, a workplace where there's a lot of conflict and strife?
Absolutely. When you have a toxic or a terrible workplace, I mean, when you look at culture in itself, culture isn't really tangible. So it's going to take each individual person within that workplace to work on their own emotional intelligence and the way that they interact in order to improve that. It's got to start with the people at the top. It's got to include everyone in every layer. But emotional intelligence is what opens up the conversation and gives them a process, a clear process to be able to follow to build the skills. Because emotional intelligence isn't something that we either have or we don't have. It's a skill that all of us can learn. And in every situation, we've got a choice to either respond in an emotionally intelligent way or not. So it's about getting workplaces to understand what emotional intelligence is, how you build those skills, and how you apply them day to day in all of your interactions.
That's Emotional Intelligence Specialist Amy Jacobson. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow at BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast.
SoundCartel.